data set right. Okay, so I'll give little bit of brief overview around why OTP is dead, um, henceforth in terms of 2025 and beyond, because the misuse of OTP has been orchestrated by multiple players, and this is very much um, against the ethos of the regulations which were framed at the first place. And that is one reason OTP, particularly in terms of, although blockchain, or we talk about these wallets, it is linked to the allocated SIM number which the candidate is utilizing to authenticate one of the parameters for transaction. However, blockchain is all to do or to understand is trust and nature. If we just take this spectrum, which is like one end of the spectrum is the nature, second end of the spectrum is trust. Now, in this, when we are talking about the Impala network, one of the use case studies is the framework, or the basic framework is a kind of a login which is based on the task which is provided to the candidate. So even if the candidate has a password, uh, maybe it's a good strong password, it can still be cracked or it can be hacked because of the social stuff which is ongoing in the online world, without the cognizance of the candidate. Now, to overcome this whole menace, when we talk about the cybersecurity, is to provide multiple tasks to the candidate to authenticate that the candidate understands the ethos of the portal, which is a combination of the offline world, the online world, remote, hybrid, quantum definitely plays a very pivotal role, because quantum is not something which is not known to the stakeholders. Many stakeholders globally are pushing the agenda of the quantum world to be part of the daily life of most of the candidates who are part of the World Wide Web. If we take these three quadrants, the fourth one which I disclosed or we discussed was the ESOPs, or the capitalistic way of working. We already saw what's happening in US in terms of stopping the minting of the coins, because um, just orchestrating something in the offline world, it has a capitalistic cost associated with it. Okay, I've been asked a question. Um, I think generally I don't answer this question, but good enough to understand how everything works, because I have been in the sector of the protocol network, being drafting the technological framework for more than 2 decades. So you can calculate whatever the calculations you want to calculate. But yes, I'm into longevity also. Okay, coming back to the understanding here, that one time password is totally dead in terms of the orchestration of the numbers, because there are cases whereby the OTP itself is static. Honestly, OTP has to be dynamic. Since OTP has to be dynamic, it cannot be static. And if it is static with other parameters in conjunction, that is against the ethos of what OTP is all about. So I'll put myself on mute. We'll discuss few of the technology applications which have been worked upon, or at least tried upon or disclosed by multiple players globally, because it's always good to work with pool of technologies and then put your own layer of tech over it and share the profits with the folks who were part of the initial protocol. So that's how it should work. Okay, so currently we are creating um, some of the use case studies where we are cutting the energy use in terms of AC and DC and experimenting with harvesting power from the waste itself, which is very much feasible in terms of the technology already disclosed in the public domain. And because the timeline of 20 years is over, so anybody is free to use. Along with that, yes, it's always good to go back to these guys or these folks or these enterprises to understand the technical know-how, because although any of these technologies, they are supposed to be Aposita compliant. Aposita is a person skilled in the art. Still, there are a lot of factors because range doesn't work properly. You need to have the exact number in terms of the parameters, and that input data itself is good, or I would rather say klug, smart enough to get things done in a fast, speedy manner. So let us see. I'm just pushing one of the stuff which I need to, and we'll discuss a little bit more in a while, putting myself on mute. Okay, so one needs to understand, and particularly this is something, a base on which a lot of business are being operated right now in the world. The difference between the word luxury, that is one end of the spectrum, and at the other end of the spectrum where it is available for anyone and everyone, both has a purpose. So when we talk about luxury, luxury is a commodity which is utilized or available to a very few candidates or stakeholders or operators, for the reason that a lot of research and development activities have undergone just to develop that luxury. Whether we talk about a drug which is undergoing the process of research and has taken almost 15 to 20 years just to develop that miracle drug, itself is a luxury in terms of the section of society to which it is available. At the other end of the spectrum is the affordability of these drugs itself, because that, or rather I would say one of the ethos of innovation is it should be affordable to the masses so that humanity can thrive. Both are equally important. The point of contention here always is to solve the problem of understanding the bureaucracy between the two and come to a point where it is a win-win for both the parties. Can that be resolved through blockchain? The answer is yes. The question is how it cannot be resolved or why it should not be resolved. This has to be answered through the understanding of TRIPS agreement. So TRIPS stands for Traditional Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights. However, although the term seems very lucrative, the in-depth meaning has a lot of depth in terms of zillion protocols, or rather I should say the right quadrillion protocols are being operated just to get to the understanding of what trip is all about. The fun part is this, uh, YouTube is asking weird thing you used to believe. I wouldn't say it's weird, that is reality. It's just that normal people have no cognizance of it, because when you are researching the technological aspect and not just reading the papers which is published in these PubMeds or IEEE, but really working on the databases whereby a lot of technology has been developed or are believed to be developed by people who call themselves as patent applicant innovators. So that is a very strong belief system of mine, because I have gone back to the papers of 17th century, 18th century, which now is not very easily available, although we have all these LLM models which are a part of the synthetic data set. A lot of agenda items are being pushed through the LLM models, and there is a question which is being asked, particularly in the context of India and China. China, let's take it as close ended. India is very open ended to so many things. What is the need of the hour is to develop the small models where it is proprietary enough and it is based on real data set, because even the best of the books are not disclosing the right data, and without the right data or without the right input data, whatever primary research, tertiary research, secondary research is being conducted, that doesn't fall into any of the categories where the investment can come in or whatever can happen based on the input data, because a lot of operators are working simultaneously just to get the agenda items in, I would say, passed on in the best possible manner. So yeah, it is weird, but it's reality as to the agenda items which already have been, I mean, discussed 30 years back, that is real today, irrespective of the fact what is happening at a delusional level for the normal people, because they have no cognizance of as how even technology should be evolved if we talk about 2025, but it is happening just according to the timeline. Okay, now let's try and understand the luxury part, which is one end of the spectrum. So luxury comes at a price. Now, when luxury comes at a price which is a commodity, and it should only be available to a section of the society, there are a couple of reasons, and the very important reason here is to stop dilution of brands. When we are trying to understand what is brand dilution, irrespective of the fact, there are brands whose counterfeit are easily available everywhere. Now, people who are traveling to US, their bags are checked and they see the counterfeit stuff that is taken out at the airport itself. So that is under the custom rules of the country. Now these brands have uh, paid, or they have impregnated into the system. Like, even for example, I'll give you a very uh, it's a good example, I think. Starbucks. So this is Starbucks. So this is a offer being run by Starbucks in India. Now Starbucks has opened up its 500 stores. Though once they completed their 500 store, they're offering this limited edition tag along with a tall beverage and a celebrity treat. The point here is this limited edition. So this limited edition of whatever the number count is, it is limited. So there has to be only this number of the tags. That itself is an NFT. Now, cut 30 years down the lane, if somebody's still having this, so this becomes a luxury because it was limited. So limited always have a better performance in the short run, because the trials have to be run with the best of the candidates, so that whatever is being developed has value. And to develop the value, if we just go back to how internet behaved in the early 90s, particularly from the standpoint of India, it was very different. It was costly. It was not costly because there was a cost attached to it. It was costly because there was so much of tech involved. There was so much of money involved. There was so much of employment which was being generated. So again, in 2025, somehow we are still trying to balance out the understanding where the understanding is not happening, because the stakeholders, so there's this one part of the stakeholder who wants to portray, okay, this is how it should work. There's a second stakeholder or group of stakeholders who are of the opinion this should work like this. Now, in the bigger scheme of things, China and India, they are the front runners. When I say they are the front runners, that means that people who have been there, they know it. So I'm talking about China, have been there. The good thing is, like, say for example, Uber and the others, which are actually ride hailing services, they have their something called as domesticated one, which is called as Didi. And perhaps they just made it very clear that the data of the country is not going to go out, and their firewalls are very high. As compared to India, I mean, except the wall, everything else is happening. So you understand the entropy in India itself is like the kind of chaos which is being created at any given point of time. Hats off to the operators who are able to still operate in this chaos. At a level of the spectrum, at one end, there's loads of intellectual property rights being filed. At the other end of the spectrum is the I. I stands for infringement. Oh my gosh. Infringement of another order altogether. I mean, monetarily, ethically, judicially, it's being compromised. And let me tell you, judiciary has nothing to do with this. It is the way when law is misused to develop something which should not be developed in the first place, if we are ethical enough. So that is where we are in terms of understanding the protocols. And the base of this is, you go and look into the WIPO data set. So WIPO stands for World Intellectual Property Organization. See the kind of applications which have been filed. I mean, at the first place, people who are representing them, how did they even agree to work on such an application? So yes, what is called as ethics comes into play. Even they are part of different protocols in terms of their qualifications or in terms of perhaps just being there to orchestrate whatever they're orchestrating. Now, when we are utilizing blockchain as a service, so which is BaaS, so here when I talk about, there have been certain events, and these are real life events, real life offline events. There's a lot of emphasis on the six letter word driver, DRIVER. And I was like, why this is being orchestrated out of proportion again, again, and again, and again. Now, the easy way out is to negate it. Now, what are we doing on the Impala is taking one problem statement out of a while, and right now it is the electricity. The data servers are actually being run on so much of electricity and water, and that is scarce right now. How that problem can be resolved by utilizing the waste which is piling up like landfills all over the place. Honestly speaking, I have seen that in the near vicinity. There is still no segregation of waste, even if I talk about the best of the places. So, the context here is the government should give the opportunity to the citizens of the country and say, hey, if you segregate this at the point of creation itself, so point of creation is POC, or I would rather say point of supply, POS also works here. That is where you get a little bit of credits where you can just nullify a little bit of the income tax, because right now what is happening is because of so much of population, and this is in best of the educated society, I'm not even getting into the uneducated group of individuals or candidates, until unless the government is providing that opportunity and says that hey, you do this, you are able to get these many credits, and you are able to um, do something to save the mother nature, because that's the paramount stuff which needs to be resolved, and it has to be done ASAP. We cannot be waiting for another century to do that. And when we talk about the smart cities, smart cars, smart this, smart that, we have to just be diligent enough, because announcing X amount of capitalistic money to resolve something goes nowhere. Directly, indirectly, it is getting into the bureaucracy and it stays with few. And that is not, again, helping out to resolve the current issues at hand, which is very important. So, this is a discussion I wanted to have. As far the calculation, the coding is concerned, probably I'll share it in an article format. You can always look into this link which I shared, because folks need to develop their own frameworks and it should be proprietary enough, and particularly on the smart contracts without the Ethereum, because where the gas fees is involved, and then we are actually promoting something which is being utilized for activities which most of the candidates do not want to be part of at the first place. So we have to be cautious enough as to what we want to invest in and how we want to be invested in to resolve the 2030 goals. Thank you for watching this out. Have a great day ahead.